An investigation found that America's largest credit union has the widest disparity in mortgage approval rates between white and black borrowers. CNN reports that Navy Federal Credit Union rejected more than half of its black applicants for conventional mortgages last year. The credit union only approved 48% of its black applicants for conventional home mortgages in 2022. Now compare that to more than 75% of white borrowers who were approved. That's the biggest gap among the top 50 lenders. Now, these disparities happen even when variables like income or debt or property value and down payment were the same between black and white applicants. That's important because some of y'all thinking, well, white people get better mortgages because they got better credit or because they make more money. When you control for that stuff, white people still got approved for more. Advocates for housing, fair housing anyway, say that this is alarming.
The black-white homeownership gap and the Latino-white homeownership gap today are both wider than they were in 1968 when we passed the Federal Fair Housing Act. It's definitely a larger systemic issue.
Navy Federal Credit Union serves military members, defense personnel, veterans, and their families. The company released a statement saying that it is, quote, committed to equal and equitable lending practices. Disparities like that are behind the push for reparations for black folk in the U.S. In 2021, California became the first state to create a committee to study the impact of slavery and to make recommendations to repair the harm that was done. San Francisco followed suit with a task force of their own, but plans just hit a snag. Mayor London Breed says a proposed reparations office won't be funded due to budget cuts. Breed also says that reparations should be addressed at a federal level rather than a local level. Other city officials justified cutting the reparations office, saying the work that would be done by the office could now be handled by other city departments. We'll just have to see. Meanwhile, a victory for reparations in New York, as Governor Kathy Hochul signed a bill that could bring some justice to millions of black people. In June, New York became the second state to pass a bill recommending the establishment of a reparations commission. More than 100 organizations, faith groups, and community leaders signed a letter last week pushing Governor Hochul to allow the bill to become law. There were also protests to the bill. Governor Hochul signed the bill this week anyway, ahead of a December 31st deadline. The signing comes after a recent report by the New York City Comptroller emphasizing the existence of racial disparities in the state. White households have a median wealth of nearly $277,000 compared to just under $19,000 for black households. Joining me now are some of the people behind the campaign to get this bill signed. With us is Nicole Carty. She's a Brooklyn resident and executive director of Get Free. And we also have Trevor Smith, the executive director of BLIS Collective. I want to thank you both for joining me. First, tell me briefly about your organizations and why they do the work that they do. Nicole, I'm going to start with you. Talk to me about what you're up to with Get Free.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. So Get Free is a youth-led movement, and it is built to repair past harms, reckon with ongoing barriers to equality, and create a future where freedom is for all. We have been organizing young people all across New York in support of this legislation, across race, across background. And it's because young people really understand that the only way that we make a future where freedom is for all is by reckoning with the lies and laws of supremacy from the foundation. And that's really what this bill does. So we've been organizing young folks to put the pressure on Governor Hochul to sign this bill. And we're going to be organizing young people to keep the pressure on this commission so we really yield the results from this historic commission.
Wow. Trevor?
Yes, thanks for having me as well. So I'm the co-founder and executive director of the BLIS Collective, and BLIS stands for Black Liberation, Indigenous Sovereignty. My co-founder and I, Savannah Romero, we were having a conversation one day just about the ways in which Black and Indigenous folks, particularly here in what we now know as the United States, have a shared history, but it often felt as if our calls, our movements were often divorced. And we were particularly thinking about the call for reparations for Black people in the United States and the calls for land back for Indigenous people. And so we started building the BLIS Collective, and our mission is to build narrative infrastructure across Black, Indigenous, and progressive social movements to repair, decolonize, and transform culture. So we really think about ourselves as an infrastructure organization. We provide research, capacity building, collaboration, and facilitate the creation of liberatory narratives across Black and Indigenous movements.
Wow, this is exciting. I love the language of this work. You know, growing up as an organizer and activist myself, you know, we were trying to do this kind of stuff, but I'm just watching another generation of leaders come through with even more radical language, even more socially just language, and it's really inspirational. And it fits a moment where you see a Reparations Commission come around. Can you all, maybe Nicole, explain to the audience what this Reparations Commission is going to do and why this is an important first step?
Absolutely. Yeah, so this is a historic day. This Reparations Commission is a historic step for Black New Yorkers and all people towards making a more just future. This commission is going to create a panel to really tell New York's whole story. And it's going to reckon with the legacies of slavery and discrimination, anti-Black violence that continue to harm Black communities to this day. What we hope to get out of this commission is really a roadmap for undoing the white supremacy that has been folded into our institutions, into our narratives, and really charting a path for a future where freedom and equality is real for everyone in New York.
Interesting. Trevor, when people think reparations, they often just think about the South. They often just think of, you know, maybe repaying debts that were owed because of slavery south of the Mason-Dixon line. Explain to me New York's relationship to slavery, because it has a very interesting and complicated history as well.
Have to do is look at Wall Street, and Wall Street, you know, being kind of the financial hub of the United States and arguably the world, was also the hub of the selling of people that looked like me and you, Mark, and Nicole. So New York has a long history of selling enslaved people, and then there's also a number of corporations that played a part that are home to New York, or that call New York home, have had a major part in the slave trade, such as Citibank and other financial corporations as well.
Governor Hochul took a long time to sign this bill, y'all. I mean, maybe I'm tripping, but like the deadline is like next week, and it's just happening now. It went down to the wire. Is that strategic? You know, I don't even want to put you in Governor Hochul's head. I'm just going to ask the question. Why do you think it took so long, Nicole?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think it's because she's doing a political calculus, you know. I think she knows on a level and knew at a level that this is the right thing to do. But even today when we were at the signing, she admitted that she wasn't sure she was going to sign this bill until last Thursday. That's after about a month of activity that Get Free, Trevor also helped facilitate to show that young people are really looking to the governor for leadership right now. And I think that pressure really helped push her over the edge.
Oh, absolutely. Politicians are always moved by pressure, not by feelings, you know. So, Trevor, how do we get that to expand to other states before we go? What can we do to encourage a similar bill in Pennsylvania or Kentucky or wherever? I only got about 30 seconds.
When we look at public opinion for reparations across the country, we see that it's pretty popular amongst Black communities. Around high 70s, low 80% of Black people support reparations, but less than 10% of Black people believe that it's possible in their lifetime. So one thing that we must do is inspire hope, tell hopeful stories, tell stories of New York, California, the cities across the country that are really exploring what reparations could look like, so that Black people know that it's possible, so that we can do what Nicole talked about, mobilize Black folks to pressure the public officials to make sure.
Let them know that it's possible, and then mobilizing them. That's what I'm talking about, y'all. Everybody, Nicole Carty is a Brooklyn resident, executive director of Get Free. Trevor Smith is the executive director of BLIS Collective. I want to thank you both for joining me.